All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Hi, I'm Allie Fleeson. I'm with the Sustainable Oakland Green Team. This is a presentation with the Sustainable Oakland Green Team and the Oakland Board of Health. And this is with Carol Tyler and with the Animal Control. Oh my goodness, I forgot the presentation name. And this is our presentation on animals in the community.
Coexisting with wildlife.
Coexisting in wildlife. Thank you. All right.
Good evening.
Thank you.
I'm Carol Tyler from Tyco Animal Control. I have over 35 years experience dealing with wildlife and animals as a professional in Bergen County. I was in Morris County before that. So I'm going to step back and let you see the screen. And we're going to talk a little bit about the wildlife that we have here. We are very lucky here in Oakland. We have crazy amounts of wildlife, as you all know. And despite the fact that we are the most densely populated state in the nation, we're the fifth smallest, New Jersey provides habitat for an incredible number of diversity of animals. What does that mean? It means we have a lot of animals here, and I'm pretty sure you all see it every day. There are more than 400 vertebrae found in this state, which is amazing, because one of the things that's unique about New Jersey is we lie in a very unique position. The dark red is the northern species range areas. And the striped red is the southern species range areas. And if you notice, New Jersey has both. And it's a very simple reason. We have combined, with hundreds of miles of coastline, 5 physiographic regions. The Pine Barrens combined, the 5 physiographic regions, and the Pine Barrens combined to support every kind of wildlife. We have seashore animals, we have mountain animals, we have swampy animals. We have it all right there in New Jersey. We have every environment. So we're pretty lucky, probably why most of us like living here. The Division of Fish and Wildlife is responsible for all wildlife in New Jersey. So that's game and non-game. So even when you call me and I say, geez, I'm sorry, whatever's happening, I really feel bad, I can't do anything about wildlife without their permission. So it includes the goal of making sure wildlife sticks around. Now, maybe not so much now, but maybe 15 years ago, we'd be shocked to see deer running up to our front porch. We'd be shocked to see an eagle flying over. But their job as Fish and Wildlife has created the availability for wildlife to resurge in this area. Their work has restored the populations of turkey, peregrine falcons, bald eagles, osprey, beaver, coyotes, and even bobcats have extended their range and are doing really, really well in the state of New Jersey. Matter of fact, we have everything you need for them to live because we have 5 physiographic regions. Every species within the ecosystem has a role. And if we mess with that balance, so people call all the time, well, I want this animal gone, I want that animal gone. That will cause a vacuum. It will cause a problem. We've always seen what happens when we get a little involved. So years ago, not that the state did it on purpose, but coyotes were reintroduced along the parkway. And they've done so well, those 22 original coyotes. How many people can say they saw a coyote in northern Bergen County? We all do. They're everywhere. They're in cemeteries in Brooklyn. They're on rooftops in the Bronx. All right? Coyotes have learned that humans are a little afraid of us. Humans are a great source of food. Heck, if I scare a human, they'll drop the garbage bag and I can have a whole delectable buffet of things to eat. So they've learned what we don't know. They really don't want to eat us. We are not on the menu. They will bite us to defend. They will protect their territory and they can become sick. But for the most part, coyotes are not the most dangerous species in New Jersey. Humans are. So if we render any group extinct, we are going to cause an imbalance everywhere across the board. And that's crazy. If a species becomes overabundant, it definitely has a significant effect on the environment. Let's look at the deer. They are beautiful. I remember when I was growing up in Rutherford, if I saw a deer driving up in Mawa, I was like, stop the car, take pictures. Now I'm picking them up on a daily basis in the roadways. The main predator for deer are cars. Over 500 motor vehicle accidents reported last year. Now, there's a bunch of us that didn't report them. I didn't. I didn't hit one, I didn't report it. But most people don't want to call their insurance company for a $1,000 claim. Raises your rates. And sadly, because of the danger of swerving to avoid a deer, there are actually companies out there that pay their truck drivers, and I know this for a fact because I come from a trucking industry, and my brother was still the CEO of a trucking company. They actually give a $200 reward if you do not veer off the road or hit another vehicle. So I'm saying you're paying a $200 bounty for hitting the deer? No, we're paying them $200 not to make it worse. How's that? So every species has a role in the balance, but with the deer population, and not picking on deer, but how many people are complaining about their bushes? I finally met my neighbor after 35 years of living in my house because they ate the stupid arborvitae that was covering my fence. We actually like each other. It was a good thing. So if we mess with the balance in nature, we can have things that we really don't want happening. So we have coyote, fox, bear, and bobcat. With no predators to control the population, alter feeding behaviors, the prey species quickly degrade and overrun its habitats. That would be rabbits, woodchucks. Now, I know everybody calls me out woodchuck problems. I think I have two. And I always giggle a little bit because you have 4 generations, probably 30 of them. And their tunnel system goes over several yards. People go, oh, I filled it in and poured cement down the hole. Give it a week. It'll have a new hole. There's a lot of people working in that family. And they have condos under your ground. You just don't know it. And they do use multiple properties. Every animal that makes a den makes an emergency exit, or 2, or 7, or 20. So we have over 2,000 species of rodents. They're the largest group of mammals in the world. Nearly every kind of animal preys on rodents to some extent. Birds, reptiles, amphibians, and mammals, and even fish will eat frogs. Yeah, so people don't believe that. They're like, oh yeah, they'll eat mice and stuff. You're close enough to the water's edge, they'll take you out. But if we didn't have that happen, our 2,000 plus species of rodents in this state would probably be 2 million of one species. And that will cause a problem because that one species will cause a shortage of another food source. So snakes are carnivores, but they keep the number of their prey down. Without snakes, you'll all be calling me complaining about the chipmunks. They are not as cute as Chippendale, and they invade your house, they eat your wires, destroy your insulation, and they steal every piece of seed you put out for birds. And we'll get back to bird feeders. Bats. They cannot contract the West Nile virus like we thought. When West Niles came here, we said, well, now the bat number is going to drop. West Niles did not affect a single bat. White nose disease almost decimated New Jersey bats. And bats can kill over 10,000 mosquitoes a day. One bat. And of course, by eating those mosquitoes, they kill the West virus, mosquitoes carrying the disease, and they're good for our environment. Besides mosquito control, bats can help the population of beetles, moths, and leafhoppers, like the grasshoppers or the inchworms that eat the leaves. So it saves your forest, because we know there's sections driving out 287, you'll see sections of bare trees in the Rampo Mountains. Those were leafhoppers that did that. Whichever various one it is, whether it was the moths or the grass, the caterpillars. So we love caterpillars. They turn into butterflies. They got a really good representation, or people telling you what good it is. But ultimately, somewhere between the butterfly and their birth, they do decimate the environment. So wildlife population has increased significantly over the last 30, let's say 40 years. I did not have to deal with bear, deer, coyote, bobcat, turkey vultures, fox, rattlesnakes, feral cats, beavers, and copperheads when I started in Bergen County. I had a couple copperheads out in Morris County, but I moved to Bergen County and I take up doing animal control and I think, piece of cake. Stray dogs, stray cats, a little education here and there. My first bear was only a 100-pound bear, but he got himself in a bad situation, so we called in Fish and Wildlife and tranquilized him. I am aces. I did this beautifully. Kept the bear in a position, dropped that trank into that bear. Fish and Wildlife came. We put it in a trap. We even celebrated by having lunch before it was driven out to the Delaware border gap. The second bear was a 342-pound, scarred male, about 12 years old, that had his battle scars all over his body in the middle of White Cloth. And he had come to a point in his life, as many of us do at a certain age, I don't care what you think. I don't care what you say. I am absolutely open the door to that shed. I am absolutely eating that entire barrel of bird seed that they put there. Matter of fact, I got really clever at opening garage doors, and he even opened a few car doors. Because if you watch, bears have learned that just put their handle in there, go like that, it opens. And I would tell you, if this happens to you, take your keys and set the alarm off. You may have to clean something off the seat, but your car will still be intact. Deer, I used to love deer. I used to say, I want to go somewhere and feed deer. Now I want to find the people who feed the deer because the deer are having 2 and 3 babies at a time. That is your overpopulation problem. And it's a big problem because the deer that has 2 or 3 babies in her first 2 or 3 gets, lifespan is shortened. It's like anyone who has twins or triplets. You all know this, moms. We have 1 and we're like, and dads, you have 1 and you're like, oh man, imagine having 2 or 3 following you around. The funniest video, unfortunately, most people's most people's systems can't support the video that I'd love to show of the mama bear with the 5 cubs. And it's even better if you put it on an Irish brogue. And it's, I told you to cross this thing. What are you doing? You're up a tree. It's hysterical. But honestly, the bear was, at some point, would kill 2 of those cubs. Because she can't sustain them. She can't corral them. Or they'll get themselves in a situation she just leaves them behind. And I hear all the time, the mother deer has left the baby. No. A mom deer will visit a baby maybe twice during the day. Rabbits will only sometimes visit once. They are not abandoned. They get away from them because most species are born without scent. So animals can't smell the babies, but they do smell the mothers. So they feed them and get out of the area. But they're usually close enough to run me over should I try to intercede. Excuse me. Coyote, bobcat. We see bobcat all the time. Turkey, vultures. Foxes are beautiful. They do not want your children. They really don't want your cats. Matter of fact, fox babies are called kits for a reason. Fox closely resemble cats in mannerisms. A matter of fact, if you put out food for a cat will share with the fox. I have many videos like this. There's something wrong with that cat and that fox because they're sharing food. They don't know animosity. They don't know gluttony. They just know that there's a bowl and we both can fit our heads in it. Rattlesnakes. I prefer rattlesnakes over copperhead and over black rat snakes. Copperheads and black rat snakes say, oh, really? And they come back at you. Rattlesnakes sit there and go, I did my best. Please leave me alone. And yes, if you get bit, it hurts. And you have to go to the hospital in Patterson and pray that you saw the kind of snake. Because if we don't know what kind of snake, we're going to assume what bit you, we hope, is a poisonous New Jersey snake. But we had a person in New Jersey bit by a monocle cobra in Fairlawn. Lost the use of his arm. He almost died. They were sending him to St. Joseph's in Patterson when the wife said, yeah, the red snake bit him. And the cop got curious enough with the flashlight on the tanks. There were 2 red snakes. One was a copperhead. One was a monocle cobra that didn't even belong in this country. But they had fresh bedding, and he saw the blood on the monocle cobra's tank. So fortunately, he looked. They figured that out. They put him on a helicopter, got him to Jacobus Medical Center. You think, wow, that's probably the best medical center in the world because we flew people there. Nope. It's the only one that has any type of other antivenoms, including for spiders. What's next to the Jacobus Hospital? The Bronx Zoo. And they don't share nice. You pay a fortune. So please don't play with snakes because if they suspect you've been bitten, and I will say in Bergen County, I've learned one very important thing. I gotta stop touching that. One very important thing. Sometimes, not all of us, I know I personally don't, but some people have more money than brains. That you'd go to Pennsylvania and bring back a copperhead, a rattlesnake, and a monocle cobra. We have picked up alligators. We have picked up caiman. While I'm trying to catch the thing, the guy at the top of the stairs screaming, I hope it kills you. Really, thank you. A 6-foot-long caiman, the Fish and Wildlife came and said, can you put it back in the cage for us? I'm like, whoa, dude, I don't make the money you make. But we put him in the cage and he got taken to Salem, Massachusetts. But the thing is, all of these animals do cause some problems. Now, everybody sits here. I love cats. But there are things called feral cats. We didn't have feral cats in the 70s. You had the cats. Nobody kept their cat in at night. You threw the cat out at night. Still not sure, but I think it has to do something with babies and cribs. But my father did the same thing. Poor scamp, who wasn't bothering anybody, got tossed out the door every night. The dogs got to stay inside. And Scamp kind of liked it because every morning by the milk box, he left my father a present. And my father would pick up the present and pour some milk from the box into a dish. The cat got rewarded. So it made the cat a great rodent hunter. As he got older, we couldn't get him in the house at night. It made it a little problem because now he's probably one of the prey. But we never had hundreds of them anywhere. And I can tell you there's times I'll go to a property and I'll walk down the driveway and cats will come running from every direction. We just cleaned up a colony of cats on Franklin Turnpike in Wyckoff. There were 3. That's what the lady told me. I'm going to feed 3 cats. We took 18 and there's still 9. So when you feed one cat, especially when they breed and they're all black and white or all orange tabbies, you really don't know what you're feeding. But what you are feeding are other animals. So the beavers. Beavers are cool. Nobody hated beaver cleaver. But what beavers aren't are really good for municipalities. They decide where your new future lake is. Funny story, not picking on Northvale, it's one of my towns. I got a phone call. On Paris Avenue, they put in about 24 brand new trees. They're about that big at the trunk side. They call me up, all upset. Something ate our trees and dragged them across the lawn into a parking lot. I said, how full is the parking lot with water? Oh, pretty full. It's about 10 inches. Oh, give them time. It'll be a lake. So I go over, investigate the situation. Sure enough, a male beaver wanted to have a couple females. Now, a male beaver can have as many girlfriends as he wants because he just has to build more hutches. He blocked it, empty building in Northvale, blocked the stream, the parking lot became Lake Northvale, and he invited 2 girlfriends. And by the time we were able to do anything about it, because we can't trap beaver any time of the year except November, we brought in a state trapper. And the last thing I said in September is, please don't replant the trees. I guess insurance paid for the trees, so they replanted them. Well, guess what he did? So the time the trapper got there, not only did he trap the male beaver, once we brought the male out of the picture, the female, like, I got no provider, I'm out. It took about 3 days for the DPW to undo his weaving of all the branches and all the stumps and all the pieces of the tree. So you understand, beaver are really cool until they're on your property. Franklin Lakes, we have a couple of very active beavers, and every so often I get a phone call, I have a pond in my yard I never had before. Oh, great. And again, we have to do what we can do without doing the trapping because we can't trap until November. So I will tell you that beavers particularly don't like rap music. And people think I'm nuts, but run an extension cord out to the edge of your property and put on rap music. The percussion and the constant boom, boom, boom. We all know that if you listen to one song too long, it gets on your nerves. So do the beavers. Also good if you have animals in your attic. Before we get involved, put a radio up there and play the worst music. Now, I won't say what music, but some people swear gospel music gets them out pretty fast. Other people tell me rap. Some people tell me country. And I happen to think country's great, but maybe the twang of the guitars and the...
Barry Manilow. I think they did that big...
Whoa, don't you pick on my man Barry.
It worked, so
I went to his concert 2 years ago. He's 80-something year old. My brother turned to me and says, I'm 80-something years old. You wouldn't pay that much to see me sing. I said, when he turned around and wheeled his butt, we all cheered, but he's still 81 years old. Good old Barry. I'm seeing George Strait Saturday. So we are building in all their habitats. Yes, we are. It's a very true fact. But despite that fact, we still have an overabundance of wildlife because unlike us, they learn to adapt. If you take away their beautiful woodlands, they'll find out that under your deck, in your shed, in your kid's playhouse through the winter, there's lots of places for them to live. I actually had a lady call and complain because she has bats living in a tree that when it poops, it hits the corner of her deck, so we should come over and cut the tree down. Oh. And I'm like, no. You can't say no. You're a public servant. I serve the environment. The answer is still no, but if you want to take those bats out, let me give you the 800 number for Fish and Wildlife. And when you call, start out with, I want to kill bats. See what happens. I'll track your number. They'll be at your house in a half hour, and I think the fines start at $10,000. So why is everybody upset about wildlife? Well, there's attacks on pets and humans. We hear about those. But honestly, so one of the most publicized in the last couple of years was the coyote taking out the chihuahua. If you put your chihuahua out alone at 10 o'clock at night, and your chihuahua weighs about 9 pounds, do not expect the borough of Wyckoff to call their animal control officer out at that hour. They did call me out the next day. We did do some education, and we also, because it was attached to the Yamma Farm property, we did some clever maneuvering with dogs and the coyotes. They came out thinking they were getting a rabbit, and they had a bunch of, and Laura can tell you, my dogs are pretty well trained, a pack of dogs chasing for half a mile through Franklin Lakes, almost into Oakland. We never stop. We get making it move along. But we just have to make them remember, we're humans, we're crazy, and we're dangerous. And that's what we have to be, because we can't be their friends. We get abnormal numbers of various species. We overfeed them. There's an artificial food source. The artificial food source causes an artificial number of animals. And then you take Granny and put her in the nursing home and no one's feeding these animals. Guess what? They're approaching every person getting out of their car in a parking lot. Property damage. I still want my arborvitae's vax. Disease, Lyme, toxoplasmosis. Do you know that deer can carry COVID and it doesn't affect them at all? Do you know bats carry rabies? Doesn't affect them at all. They can live with these diseases. We can't. So we want to control those things. And very important to know that rabies vaccines are controlled. Rabies is controlled very simply by vaccinating domestic animals. It creates that little Berlin Wall between us and the disease. And increased numbers of rabies. Now, I know everybody tells me, there's no rabies in New Jersey. Then why am I testing 30 specimens a month in Trenton? Why does the poor guy Billy at the lab have my cell phone number? I have his cell phone number and I know his sleep patterns? Because we do have rabies up here. And we have people who, your dog gets into a tussle with wildlife, break it up. But don't try to use your hands, because either you get bit by the wildlife or bit by your own pet. A water hose placed in the eyes of the predator or your dog, depending who's being the stupidest one, will break it up. Grabbing your dog by its back legs will break its interest in the wildlife. But putting your hand between two animals, listen, I'm on the ambulance corps. If two people start fighting, I wait till one falls down before we treat them. Don't get between fighting. My children fight. I said, well, whoever's done in the end is raking the yard. So think, we're humans. We should think better. So I'm only feeding a couple of cats. Look at how innocent is that? Look at that bird feeder. Now look at the bird. He's no bigger than my hand, right? We agree on that? Do you know his stomach is no bigger than my pinky nail? Look at the amount of food. You want to put up a half a cup of food and let the birds eat it, and put a tray to catch the seed from going on the ground so rodents don't come. That's great. But we have the peanuts for the squirrels and that, and this is an actual house in Wyckoff. We had to get a judge to order her only to put 4 feeders out with half a cup of food. Why? Because her neighbor's roofs were being destroyed by little birds sitting on it waiting for the next feeding. And she'd fill those feeders. That was the empty day. I always put my trash away, and I always use the proper bins. Now, most of your yards don't look like this. This is an apartment building. But this is a problem. To a bear, that open dumpster, it may look like it only has recycling in it, but every one of those beer cans in the bottom tastes like nirvana. And I've watched a bear go, whoop, 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 come up with the Coors, drop that one, do it again. And I'm like, he likes Coors. Told my husband he can't drink Coors anymore. And I have sealed tight bins at my house, but I also have a bear that comes through. I let the dog chase the bear, condition the bear. I use bangers, I use noisemakers, I use everything. I have set firecrackers off behind him. He turns, looks at me, gets all scared, huff, 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 then goes, but wait, there's still 2 beer cans in there I haven't licked. So we don't want that to be us. And I'm sure no one in this room has done this. But what really happens when the cats walk away? Raccoons and skunks. What are those? The number 2 carriers of rabies in the world. What are they doing while they're eating? Drooling on the food. Who's going to eat the food next? The cat. Feral cats, stray cats are not vaccinated for rabies. And that's why we have to send cats for testing. We've even had to send a horse for testing because the lady was feeding so many cats on her property. Turned out the horse didn't die of rabies. It died of EPM, which is caused by opossum poop in the feeders. Scary, right? So our friend there, the bear, they just can't help themselves. A pretzel jar. And I'm sure there was only salt left because I know I turned mine upside down and eat the salt. But the bear gets their heads in jars like that. They walk around for days till they get weak enough for us to pull the thing off their head. We've had deer like that. The problem is if I tranquilize that animal until he's weak enough that we can get him down, he'll run for 4 to 8 minutes with the tranquilizer in him. I can't run for 4 to 8 minutes, and I certainly can't run fast. I had my time and I had my day. There's still a story in Rutherford that I jumped a 4-foot fence in stride. I grew up in that neighborhood. I knew the guy had rocks stacked on the one side. I jumped the rocks. The dog jumped the fence. I jumped over the rocks. But no, we can't mess with wildlife till they're almost dead. And then we hope they recover once we free them from that prison. They can't drink. They're breathing their own carbon dioxide. They are going to go down. The squirrels and the birds. And that squirrel doesn't care that the bird feeder is suspended off the deck. He's going to take a flying leap. He's going to get there. He's going to knock about 5 pounds of that seed on the ground. then he's going to drop to the ground. So he'll eat his fill and leave, but then what's going to want it next? Chipmunks, rodents, things you don't want. And the deer. They're so clever. You know, your town had to pick an ordinance that your bird feeder had to be 8 feet off the ground and have a seed catcher. Because if you don't put it 8 feet off the ground, the deer can reach 7 feet with their front hooves and bang on it till the seed falls on the ground. So we've had to make some very strange ordinances in our lives. But Oakland actually has an anti-wildlife feeding law. What happens? Coyote and the dog, the bear in the cage. By the way, donuts, fresh from Dunkin' Donuts, do it every time. They'll go right in. The goose chasing the poor guy on the bike. The turkey attacking your cars and chasing the people when they try to use their leaf blowers in their yard in the fall. Guys, turkeys really do have spurs on their heels. It really does cut you. The geese do not have teeth. But if you've ever been bit by a goose, you get mad. That's why I get them by the neck before they get me by the hand. Turkey vultures will beat the heck out of you with their wings. So understand, when you call about these things, and I sit there and say, okay, I'm really feeling brave today, let me do this. And I'm like, no. And on top of that, going to my dentist, which is the biggest fear of my life, had a turkey vulture in his parking lot. I couldn't park. And I knew I couldn't go home and tell my husband I didn't go to the dentist because it was a turkey vulture. So I had to go get a turkey vulture so I could go into a dentist and be scared. But the nitrous helps. Why can't we just tranquilize all that wildlife and take them somewhere else? Nobody wants them. It's a violation of disease control policies throughout the country. So I'm not allowed to take animals from Hohokus and move them to Saddle River. They might bring a disease to Saddle River that Saddle River didn't have. Conversely, I can't take them from Bergen County and bring them to Morris County. Tranquilizers take 4 to 10 minutes to take effect. Drug animals run at large and they're dangerous. Now, you get an animal that's drugged and we don't find them. Have you ever woke up from a really bad drinking night? Not you kids, but, you know, or you've had dentistry and they put you to sleep. You wake up, you're all groggy and cranky. I was cranky before I went in. Drugged animals are dangerous. That's why when you take your pet to a vet and they say, well, it'll be out of anesthesia in 4 to 6 hours, they don't want to send that animal home while it's still high. It'll bite you. Sometimes because you just took something they liked away. They're not happy. So they're altered mind, just like a drug addict. No one else wants or needs these animals in their neighborhood. I have calls all the time, and people know for a fact their cousins live in Montana and they want white-tailed deer. No, because they don't have white-tailed deer in Montana. They have mule deer. They have a lot of deer, but our white-tailed deer wouldn't survive there. And I'm not donating my horse trailer to move 30 at a time to Montana and back. If I go there, I'm not coming back, and you guys are done. I'm not your animal control anymore. Morbidity rate is very high. When we tranquilize an animal, it's a 50-50 shot that's surviving, even the bears. And, you know, everybody says, oh, my God, you didn't hold the net tight enough. The bear hit the ground. Bear jump out of trees all the time. We held the net as tight as we could hold it, but when you have something 200 pounds falling 30 feet and breaking every branch on the way that falls on the fireman's head that are silly enough to hold the net in the first place, yeah, they do hit the ground. But they don't do well on the anesthesia. It's not anything about hitting the ground. They didn't break anything. If you ever got up to a bear and you felt when it's tranquilized, when we have them down, we try to educate people. Their shoulders, their hips, they're massive. Bear get hit by cars on Route 17, get up, growl at people, and run off the road and survive. Moving animals to an unfamiliar area causes the animal to ultimately die. Animals are born in an area. They know the food source. They know the water source. They don't move far from that area. Even coyotes that can travel 6 miles a night. Bergen County coyotes do not. Half of them, I think, are running around with the Acme bomb control and all this stuff. They're not real good coyotes. And for me to be able to get close enough to say, yeah, that's a male, obviously they don't have fear of humans because everything they've been eating has human scent on it. They don't want to eat us, but if you stood there and you had peanut butter all over your hand and you look at a coyote and go, hi, they're walking up to you, oh, he likes me. No, you're going to lick your hand, then you're going to chew your hand. Don't believe him when he says, I'm just going to take a lick. You can't count on that working for you. We have snakes, and I have to feed those snakes. And they eat mice. But I never, ever, ever touch those mice with my hand. We use these long forceps, and the mice are frozen. They're pinkies. They're sterile. They're clean. I don't want my snakes. I don't like my snakes, but I don't want them to die. And by the way, if they tell you a snake lives 8 to 10 years, don't believe a word of it. I think we're on 18 to 20 on the 2 snakes we have. But we use the forceps. we make them move a little bit. The snake grabs them, constricts on them, eats them, and we never put our hands on the food we serve them. So if you look at the zoos, they wear these big gloves, they throw the food over the fence, and they go wash their hands, and the gloves are actually put in bags and put away. I did a class at Court 2 weeks ago. We were trying to make them understand not to pet dogs unless you know where the dogs come from. I let my dog run loose like I do in the class, and everybody's loving on Lucas. Lucas is a Czech Shepherd, sort of like a Belgian Malinois. He walked around, hey, how are you? I'm the social ambassador here. Then he came back, came to heel, and I had an officer, Gidget Petrie, walk in with her sleeve on. And I said, stay back, and she didn't. And I let my hand off the dog's collar, and he attacks the sleeve. He knows Gidget, but he knows she invaded my personal space. So you don't know, and she's been in first-hand contact with my dogs, and she'll tell you, they look like great dogs. Until I show her the video of the dog hanging for 7.5 minutes on the sleeve while we spun him in circles 2 feet off the ground. So don't believe that you can handle an animal. Don't believe that putting an animal in some other place, that animal's just going to settle down and say, all right, I'm cool. They are going to approach humans. Animals bite. Some animals bite and let go. Some animals bite and hang on, especially wildlife. A raccoon figures I already did the worst thing. I went after a human. I bit him. Trying to get him to let go sometimes, you're bashing them into trees, stepping on their tail while you're pulling your arm out, and that's where the damage happens. Now, you may tell me I'm crazy, but when an animal bites me, don't pull away. The damage isn't caused by the bite. The damage is caused by you doing this. So if you can, especially cats love to do that grab thing, if you don't move, they get bored with the game, mostly. Then they bring their claws out and scratch your legs up. But my daughter was 26 years old. I had a dog I rescued. Nobody wanted it. I took it home. It was perfect. Loved my husband and I. Loved us, loved my daughter until she sat down between us and he attacked her. He's about 104, he was about 104 pounds. Giant, big white German Shepherd, because I just lost my real German Shepherd, so I adopted this one. She has 3 punctures right here because she never moved. The dog latched onto her. I grabbed the dog. My husband grabbed the back legs. I got the snout. I pulled it off, and all she has is 3 punctures. You can see them on her arm, and people are shocked. Rip bit you, and that's all you have? She never moved, because when she was a little kid, we used to make her do the attacks with our dogs. So understand, if you can minimize your movement, the damage will be less. Cat bites are going to get infected no matter what, but if you could hold your hand still, most cats do this thing where they bite you, and they wait for you to play. But if you don't move, the game's over. So if you can, try not to play tug-of-war with an animal that's biting you. But again, back to these animals, why we can't tranquilize them, because they'll die anyway, and then we're animal killers and terrible people and all that. Know that we love animals. You cannot do this job if you don't love animals, because they are going to bite you, scratch you, vomit on you, pee on you, poop on you, give birth when you least expect it. So we really do love animals, and I love all kinds. So rabies. Let's talk about the simple facts of rabies. Our favorite subject in New Jersey. Rabies is an encephalitis. That means it hits your central nervous system, goes to your brain, and at a certain point, when it enters the brain of a warm-blooded mammal, you will eventually die. It affects warm-blooded mammals. Birds don't get rabies. Spiders don't get rabies. Geckos don't get rabies. Just mammals. It travels through the central nervous system. So if you're bit down on your hand or your leg, you have a little more time for treatment. But don't believe that if you get bit, you have to have treatment in 5 days. It's a little bit of a fallacy. It moves a little slower in humans. It ultimately will invade the salivary gland in the brain of the host species. So that means that there's a certain period of time that you can give that disease out. In, say, a skunk or raccoon, when we start seeing them act drunk or very aggressive, we have angry rabies or aggressive rabies, and we have dumb rabies. Sometimes it's called drunk rabies. The animal's walking in circles, chewing on the trunk of a tree, chasing its own tail, chewing on its own body parts. And that's also could be signs of distemper. So we do not give it a chance. We get the animal, we euthanize it, and we send it for testing because inevitably, when people see it laying there seizing, they pet it. Remember, it's been chewing its own body. And by the way, everybody look at your fingers. I'm sure someone has a broken cuticle, a little prick from something. I tried sewing. It was dangerous. So you always check your own hands, but try not to touch animals. If a wild animal is laying there, and I pulled up where deer have been hit by a car, and people have their heads on their laps, they go, you're going to take it to the vet and save it. It's got 3 compound fractures of its legs. No, I need you to get out of the way so I can put it out to misery, but people don't understand. Wildlife believes in the quality of their life, not the quantity of it. And most animals would rather be dead than dragging 2 legs behind it for the next 6 months for every species to attack it and bite it. Once it enters that salivary gland, the host species can shed the disease through its saliva to other species. But again, once it's in the salivary gland, in wildlife, usually within 72 hours, it's giving out the disease, but then it dies. So you hear about this 10-day holding plan. That's precaution on top of precaution. Once it enters the salivary gland, the host species will succumb to the disease in 72 hours, except bats. Bats live forever with rabies in them. Some bats have rabies, some bats don't. I'm not sure why. I just know that little bats and big brown bats don't need to be on me or around my property. And if I'm handling them, I'm using very, very thick Kevlar gloves. So the reason for the 10-day quarantine on pets is simple. Messes with wild animal, we put it under quarantine, and even if it has a rabies shot, we still say hold off. If a dog bites you, we still say hold off for 10 days. Because if this animal is shedding a disease, in 3 days, technically, it's going to be dead. At the outside, 5 days, it's going to be dead. If 10 days later, I knock on your door and you're talking, whoop, 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 okay, you don't have rabies. You're out of quarantine. It's not a very exacting science, but the only test for rabies is to take the specimen's head off and send it to Trenton. Most people don't volunteer their heads, so we can't test you for rabies. They actually put you in a hospital, drill your brain, do things. But if they're testing you for rabies, there's a very good chance you're in a bad state. And only one person I ever know ran it through and did whatever, paralyzed and died eventually anyway. The disease itself is not very virulent. It can be easily killed by most common cleaners. Dial soap. I hear about this 1 to 10 concentration of bleach. You want to do that, knock yourself out. I've had people tell me, I cleaned that whole 30-foot patio with a 1 to 10 solution of bleach. Congratulations. Just walk away from the patio for 30 minutes and the sun's going to kill the disease. It does not live outside the host. It needs the warm body to work on. So if the animal dies of rabies, it's in the road, and I get this all the time. You got to pick up that roadkill, and it has rabies. I want it tested. Did you touch it? No. Did your pet get it? No. Have you been within 10 feet of it? No. I'm not testing it for rabies because the state lab tests way too many things already, and they don't want me sending them random testing specimens. So any cleaner can clean it up. If you get bit by an animal, before you scream or carry on, well, you can cry if you want. I think everybody should get to cry. But let it bleed. Unless you're hemorrhaging, bleed it. Because what goes in comes out when you bleed it. Wash it, soap and water. So in the animal emergency field, we say, wash it, notify, and don't scare everyone else. And that's the deal. You got bit. You want to cry, but the worst is over. You already did what you probably shouldn't have done that got you bit by an animal that might be wild animal or something else. So we would just want you to bleed it and wash it out. Transmission modes of rabies. So the cat and the dog. That cat can be a feral cat, has never seen the rabies vaccine. The dog might have his rabies vaccine. So I'm not too concerned about the dog owner because if he has his rabies vaccine, he has antibodies for the disease. I get rabies shots. We get what's called pre-exposure treatment. But 12 years ago, I stuck my hand into a wood pile in my house and got post-exposure treatment. So the ones I had already counted, so I only get 3 more shots. But I do get my antibodies checked every 2 years. I still have +1 antibodies to rabies, so I think it's good. The ankle biters. Dogs can give you diseases, but if a dog has a rabies shot, the hospital is wrong. They do not need to start a series of rabies on you. If we have the health history of the animal, you don't need rabies shots. Licking the face. So everyone I know gets a stray dog, brings it in the house, calls me 3 hours later. Oh, it's been loving on my kids. They had 13 friends over. Oh yeah, it's been licking everybody. And I'm looking at this dog with like sores on its legs, a bite wound on its tail, and bottle feeding or medicating animals. These are the transmission modes we worry about the worst. And you don't know how many times we get a call from a veterinary hospital. Now, Ridgewood Veterinary Hospital years ago, Dean Surf's gone. One of his staff members walking one of the dogs at the hospital saw a ferret, picked it up, brought it in. Everyone handled that beautiful, friendly ferret. It laid in your arms limp. It rolled on its back. Everybody handled it. Valley Hospital did not have 18 doses of rabies treatment, so they had to go to several hospitals. Then it had to be ordered by the vet, $1,000 a dose. 18 of his employees had to be vaccinated, including himself. So we try to make animal hospitals remember what's missing in the feeding the cat picture. I'm feeding puppies right now that I know don't have rabies. But I still tell my staff, put your gloves on, making the food, cleaning the dishes, and doing everything. I hope I can get homes for them, but they are Belgian Malinois, so we'll see. So what you do, it's always best for the bite victim to speak to their own physician. I have years of experience. Laura has years of experience. The health department has years of experience. The state of New Jersey has years of experience. But we don't know you like your health professional does. I have immune disorder. I have rheumatoid arthritis. That's technically immune disorder. So I'm a whole fun, but apart from my rheumatologist, he's like, let's call that state guy again. But so if you get bit, all bites get treated, okay? Even the one on the human, that obviously is another human, the one on the cat's head, see the punctures? That was a couple of weeks, maybe 2 weeks before. But it abscessed, the hair fell out, the owner finally noticed it. The bite to the arm, I don't know, I still don't think that was a bite. I think it's needle marks, but who's me to judge? But as you can see, you treat everything. Anything that enters your body, even a needle entering your body, brings something with it because it's sterile, we think. Because it came out of a package, it must be sterile. I'm a doubting Thomas. New Jersey's top 6 vectors of rabies. The raccoon's number 1. The skunk is number 2. The domestic cat is number 3. And feral cats, not domestic cats. Fox is number 4. Woodchuck's number 5. And our friend the bat, he's all the way down there at number 6. Because bats don't want to play with you. Most times you have to corner a bat. And I don't know why people want to grab them. They really are just rodents with wings, but I don't know. People seem to see they gotta touch them. Cats are the number 1 domestic animal that carries rabies. Now, I won't say the cat in your house is doing it, but your cats that you are feeding outside that don't have vaccines. So I hear about TNR. I love the 3 cats I have at the horse farm. They are TNR cats. Can't touch them. And once a year, the vet's coming to do the rabies shots. We feed them in the tack room every day. And by 9 o'clock, it's get out, you're done. And we close them out so they don't climb on the saddles and stuff. One day, they'll come in and we shut the door, and they know it. They're climbing on the saddles, they're climbing up the walls, they're hiding everywhere. We come in with fishnets, drop the fishnet on them. Vet comes, gives everybody a rabies shot, a feline leukemia shot, AIDS, 6-in-1. We give them 6 shots. I don't blame them. I'd fight too if someone's trying to give me 6 shots, but at least I know when they're out there, whatever's in the wildlife around the farm is not giving diseases back into our farm area where we have horses and there's some goats. So the cats can be the biggest carrier because we don't go hang out with raccoons. But I could see people sitting in chairs with bowls of food surrounded by cats. Now I'm worried. There are 2 types of rabies, aggressive and dumb rabies. Their symptoms are very much as they sound. They're either mean or they're stupid, drunk, crazy. Most important to know this, not all animals naturally carry the rabies virus. They have to be infected with it. So rabies actually came to our country from England. We didn't like King George. We don't like them either. They brought foxes from England for the hunt in South Carolina. I believe it was the first one. May have been in Virginia. But somebody brought it here because we're virgin territory. It's like Ireland with snakes. There's no snakes in Ireland because they don't swim across the English Channel or wherever they come in from. So someone brought some infected foxes in, and from that point, and I think it was 1951 or 49, it spread throughout the country, right? When all we need is to vaccinate our animals. And rabies vaccines, the original ones were a little harsher on animals, but now they're made from a sterile product. They have very little reaction rate on animals. The human rabies vaccine has a very low reaction rate. The original vaccines went in your stomach, and it was a 68% reaction rate to humans. It's now to 0.02% reaction rate because it's made in a sterile environment. So it's not an antigen your body's going to fight. So we've had in the state of New Jersey since 1989, and I believe this is about 7 years old, 14 cows, 9 deer, 2 beavers, 12 horses, 7 coyotes, 1 bear, 7 dogs, 5 otters, 1 goat, 9 rabbits, 4 opossums, and 1 sheep. And I really find it hard to believe about the sheep because you have to get bit. Sheep run. What caught it? Something, it had to have aggressive rabies because it caught it probably at a dead run. I get nervous about the fact that bear can get rabies. We've only had 1, but we've had bear die of suspicious things. Can you imagine an angry bear? I can tell you at least one of the horses that had rabies was in freehold. It broke through its fence of its corral, ran through the downtown, destroyed 2 police cars, was shot 6 times, and still wound up going down into the waterway. And that's when it was shot about 8 more times. So an animal that big that doesn't know what's wrong but just wants to run, because remember, horses are flight animals, Eventually he turned to fight, and that's when police cars hit him and stuff like that. So think about an animal that big. Think about dogs. I mean, a dog can be hard to handle. So the simplest thing in the world, get your pets vaccinated. Use common sense. Keep your pets away from wildlife. And don't leave food out with containers you're going to pick up and touch with your bare hand. Does not carry rabies. The monocle cobra did not carry rabies. He just was going to paralyze someone and kill them. Turtles, arachnids, frogs, birds, dragons, nothing like that can carry the rabies. They are not warm-blooded animals.
Carol,
Yes.
I had a turtle this big that came up from probably the Ramapo River. One wanted to cross the street, and they're fast.
When they want to be.
He came right up to, it was hiding near the house, and I just went to get something and went back to look, gone.
Yeah, that whole adage that they're really small, slow animals, they go to the same place and lay their eggs every year. So you didn't notice it when it was smaller. But wherever it's laying its eggs, it does it every year, and it leaves. I had somebody say, oh, great, now I have a mother turtle in my yard. No, you really don't. They're the worst mothers in the world.
It was just traveling through.
And then when the babies are born, the birds eat them. So only about 10 to 15% of the turtles actually make it across the road. What doesn't run them over, they get over there, and the bigger turtles eat the little turtles. So yeah, their life expectancy is not great. So do you have any other questions? Because that was the perfect time for that question. This is our Tyco team. Those are 3 dogs. Sorry, those aren't here anymore. Now we have Lucas and Lucas and Runa and Moose and Charlotte. Yeah, we have a couple different dogs, but it was a great picture. I had everybody standing still for a moment. Anybody have any other questions about the wildlife? Go ahead.
I've been hearing a lot of rumors about these giant spiders that are coming to New York and New Jersey.
I hate spiders. Everyone in that picture are afraid of spiders. They'll take on a bear, they'll take on a caiman, but my daughter tries to give me a heart attack about 5 times a year because she'll scream. Kim, they know Kim. Kim screams. And I know we're safe because it's only a spider. Now, are the giant spiders going to live here? The giant spiders need rodent species. They're going to compete with the snakes. They're going to compete with foxes. There's a picture I have from Australia. The spider is about the size of the side door. And they tell me that's real. If it is, no, well, even if it isn't, you know I don't do animal control in Australia because my staff would leave me hanging. But I hope they don't. But usually by the time something's coming here, okay, when like the bird virus, when West Niles, we had ways of fighting it. But then environmentalists said, don't use that spray. Pigeons are dying. Oh, good, I thought that was a bonus. But we don't follow through. I can promise you, if we have spiders bigger than my hand, they're going to nuke them. Even if we have to drop an A-bomb. People are so afraid. I think one time I read in a magazine and laughed because I said, no, our staff beats that. 60% of the population is terrified by spiders. 89% of the people in that picture are terrified by spiders. So basically, do I think they'll survive? I think we'll find a way to eradicate them. But you never can tell. So talking about species and how to know. How's the animal look? Is his fur well groomed? Does he look healthy? Does he have a good posture? Is he walking normally? Healthy animal. Is his fur unkempt, dirty? Does he have wounds all over himself? Does he appear if he's drunk or coordinated? Ill animal. Call your police. The old adage, if you see an animal in daylight, it's sick. We just did that so people will call the police. The bottom line is during the breeding season or during the birthing season, raccoons will go out several times a day to eat because she's got to keep their babies fed. And they're just grumpy little things that want to be eaten all the time. What is the animal doing? Does it move and react with purpose? Do I yell at it and it runs away? That's purpose. It's healthy. Is it just sleeping in the middle of your yard? Wandering aimlessly from left to right? Does it appear to be injured in its back legs or partially paralyzed? Ill animal. Call the police. Now I keep saying call the police. You want to call me? No. They have beepers 24/7, 365 that will call us. You call my machine and leave a message. We check it every 20 minutes during the day, every hour at night until midnight. But if you call the police, they'll send a cop to watch that animal so no one else gets hurt till we get there. Does it care if you approach it? Does it attack pets, people unprovoked? Definitely an ill animal. Or you've cornered a mother animal. So dealing with wildlife in your neighborhood, it's not hard. Just don't interact with them. Those are perfectly good specimens of wildlife in great shape. When you're walking around, now I know, I tell my children, if you cross the Hudson or the Delaware, you're grounded. One's 44, one's 36, and one's 26. And they still believe that. Choose your environment. See that alleyway in New York? Will we choose that? Looks a little dark, looks a little sketchy. Well, here's a kid running in front of his parents in the Ramapo Mountains. That's right here in Mahwah. And the kid's running up the trail, and I'm thinking to myself, you probably shouldn't let him run ahead, but you did. You don't know what's coming around the corner. Wait a minute, did I miss one? No, I didn't yet. Okay, millions of people throughout the world are bitten by animals. About 90% of these bites are caused by dogs and cats. Infection is the most common complication, and children are the most frequent bitten victims. Why? Because they're friendly and loving, and they think every dog's nice. Now, we can read that dog's body language, but the kid's not. And we are the ones that are being irresponsible, not the animal. Large percent of these bites are the upper extremities of small children because the animal is disciplining that child. They'll bite their puppies on the face. They'll bite your children on the face. Never leave children unattended in the yard. Avoid confrontations. Most animals will be scared away with noisemakers. A bell, a horn, a whistle. I love those air horns. I carry them all the time. I'll get there. They'll say, the bear won't go. Ah, bear left. I can go have lunch now. What's that?
Where do you buy it?
Ramsey Outdoor, any one of the camping places, they're actually air horns for boats. You have to have one of them on small boats, so it's great. They're not expensive. They fit in your pocket. They scare people away. I've seen animals drop their anal sacs when you blow those things. So any noisemaker, when we ride our horses in certain periods of the year, there's bells on their bridles. Mostly not for the animals, for the hunters in the trees so they don't shoot my brown horse. There are some exceptions. Snakes do not react to noise. That's a black rat snake. That's a rattlesnake. Snakes react to their tongue catches vibrations, but they don't react to noise. They react to a smell, they catch on their tongue, and if it's something they can eat, they'll do it. And if it's a human, they'll say, please don't notice me, please leave me alone, and then they eventually have to defend themselves. Never run from an animal. You have 2 legs, they have 4. A race you will never win. I promise you this. Avoid cornering an animal. Don't make direct eye contact. Make noise. Back slowly away. Don't do this. Now you're showing yourself as afraid. You do this. Dude, I'm sorry. I didn't know you were here. I got this. And if the bear or the animal comes, bad bear. Everybody knows bad bear. The amazing thing with dogs is people tell me dog's mean. I go to get a dog. It's going crazy barking at me. I say, bad dog. What? Mommy told you the word? Would you like to go for a walk? And I'm holding a leash. Goes, oh, walk? Yes, I love walks every day. So honest to God, use common sense, think faster or better than the animal. Allow the animal room to escape. Unless your job is to catch that animal, and I don't even want to do that job. Let the animal escape, especially when it comes to wildlife. Any questions on that part? Not that I have the answers, but.
I had a question for Joan, who had to leave. She was interested in learning about mange, maybe how to prevent it or what to do about it if you have it in your backyard. I know she has horses and I think she's seen some.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we are not allowed to treat wildlife for mange because the drugs were given that wildlife. The wildlife is free roaming. It could be eaten by a domestic animal or, believe it or not, people still think squirrels are delicious. Deer can get that stuff. So like why they talk about why we don't throw birth control on the ground and let deer eat it. Because someone might shoot that deer and eat it themselves, and the reaction to humans to that product is dangerous. Fish and Wildlife, if they're going to treat animals with mange and we trap them, we have to keep them in custody for the entire treatment. So I'm taking the animal that's been running free, locking it in a cage, treating with Zomectrin, and making it live by humans. First thing, it probably rip itself apart on the cages, on the walls of the cages. Second of all, it get used to the smell of humans feeding it. So now I've screwed up twice. And there's a 30% chance the Zomectrin will kill it. So mange, they can survive or not. Depends on that animal's immune system, its age, its environment. And some people confuse mange with rain rot. A lot of animals that live in dens during the rainy season get fur loss. Horses do it. It's rain rot. It's not mange. But they'll survive that. It's kind of like when people tell me, I don't know if I do CPR right. Well, they're dead. No matter what you do, you're doing better. So I'd rather take the chance with nature than not do something. So whether you do CPR right or not, we can fix the ribs and everything you break. We can't fix dead. whether this animal will survive, nature will take its course. Because we interfere and we say, oh, we're going to solve all the problems, we unbalance nature again. Not all animals are supposed to survive. But apparently we feel we have a God theory and we try to get in the middle of it. So no, we don't treat wildlife in most cases. You're either healthy enough to live or we put you to sleep. And it's the kindest thing we do, because locking you in a cage is not. You hear about, I took this bear out and there was a bear with only 2 legs called Petals and they wanted to save it. I think if I was a bear, I'd rather have all 4 legs and be dead than 2 legs in a place where people are poking at me and watching me. And my fear is to run, but I can't because I'm in a cage. Okay? Thank you for your attention. Oh, I'm sorry. Question.
Bears.
Mm.
What do people do with nuisance bears, or one that keeps coming back and visiting off the mountain in their backyards on a regular basis?
Okay, there's different levels of bear. A code 1 bear is a bear that's going to break into your garage, into your shed, go after your animals, take on livestock. Fish and Wildlife will come and intercede. It probably won't be good for the bear. There's the bears that do stupid things. Keep coming back because your neighbor keeps putting food out, but they run through your yard. That's a code 2 bear. They will come and use devices to change its mind. Then there's the bear that keeps wandering through the neighborhood because that's his trail. Animals follow trails. And if someone's been feeding them, they're going to follow the same trails. Those are us. We go there, what's called bird bangers or bear bangers, and we play 4th of July. And we make that bear think we're crazy, and it runs away. Now, all our training in the world doesn't work well if humans counteract it with food. We had a person putting peanut butter on the window of her beautiful home in Seminary Ridge. A lot of those homes look alike. We get a phone call. An 87-year-old woman is hiding in her bathroom. There's a bear trying to break in her back window. Cop and I arrive together. We look at each other. I pull out my ass. He pulls out his shotgun. Somehow this was not fair, but we went in. The door was unlocked. We ran into the house. We went in, and there's the bear going with its baby doing the same thing. And we yell, ma'am, we're here. Ma'am, we're here. And she's not coming out. I think it's the shotgun. Hang on. I walk down. Ma'am, we're here. Are you in the bathroom? Yes, and I'm staying here till you get to leave. We're with you. Went to the back door, did a little hazing. The bear went over the fence. The baby went over the fence. I said, why the hell is it licking this window? Excuse that. It was just licking a blank window. There's nothing wrong with that window. So we start following the bear. After it went over the fence, it was going down behind some homes. So we followed to see if it's just a stupid bear who's now teaching his baby another stupid trick. And about 6 houses down was a house that looked just like the first one. And the bear made a beeline over the fence and to the back window. And I'm looking, and he's looking. He goes, that's not poop on the window, is it? I said, no, that is peanut butter. And then, stupid as we are, we didn't go back to our cars and go down the street. We climbed the fence, made the bear angrier. She and her baby ran, but stood on the other side of the fence going, ugh. And we banged on the door, and the lady goes, hi, what's happening? I mean, did you put peanut butter on your window? Yeah, you're feeding wildlife. No, I'm not feeding them. It's just some peanut butter because my kids want to see the bear and her baby. Do you know what happens when they run out of peanut butter? They break down your window and they eat your children. Is that a fact? No. But this woman had this level that I just needed to go baseline to her fears. The cop's sitting there going, only a contractor can say that kind of stuff. But I needed her to realize how dangerous, and we explained about the old lady who almost had a heart attack up the street who lives alone. So we're hoping the fine for feeding wildlife and our education stopped her from ever doing it again. Listen, I love kids. But if my kids say to me, hey, I'd like to see the baby bear, I'm not putting peanut butter on anything. Maybe the kid and teach him to run, but you're teaching your child that I can have anything I want in the world, and that's a whole nother problem, and I don't do that class. But putting peanut butter, putting food out for animals, even if you just want to see that animal one time, that animal said, listen, 51 Main, 337 Evergreen, they all feed, so we're going to go from this street to that street to that street. And we know who's feeding. When you see 14 deer crossing the street at a hot trot at 5 o'clock at night, you just got to stand there and wait. And sure enough, someone comes out and drops feed, and here's your sign. And we give them a ticket. We're not mean. We're trying to stop these animals from learning bad habits, from producing at a higher rate. And in some cases, in Ramsey, we had a guy feeding apple and grain in September. Problem was it was 95 degrees. And the deer were bloating. We had deer falling over all over Ramsey. They weren't hurt by car. They weren't anything. Just laying there looking like my horse with colic. and dying because we're not supposed to treat these animals. I'm not putting a tube down his throat. And so we finally took the third deer we saw loaded up, laying on the ground that died. And we did a half of a necropsy right there on the lawn. And as soon as we opened the gut, it smelled like a brewery. And it was full of apples and corn in 90-degree weather. The deer's stomach blows. Horses, when we feed our horses, we cut back on certain ingredients in certain times of the year because they will bloat, they will colic, they will die. Deer need to eat leaves in the fall, so their coats get heavy in the winter because there's stuff in the leaves that makes the deer survive the winter. Birds need to eat worms and bugs. So even the Audubon Society and the National Wildlife Federation will tell you, really, we only want you feeding birds from December till April because we need them to eat bugs and worms to get them ready to migrate. And so there's certain things the animals have to eat. I don't think we're taking that under advisement. And just for the record, species have survived for thousands of years with no help from us at all. Matter of fact, we used to actively hunt animals and eat them, and they still outnumber us. So maybe we just have to rethink our egos and what really needs to survive. Our children need us to survive. Later on, they need us for our money and our cars. But the animals do not need us to survive. They do quite well on their own.
One more question.
Go ahead.
What beavers in November? That's the only time we can move them?
That's the only time we can hunt beavers because that is when they start to breed. So they're not pregnant yet. They are stupid and more eager to find, we use scents, male and female scents, and they will actually go after the traps and get caught. Unfortunately, beaver traps are snare traps or snap traps, which are lethal. We're not catch and releasing beavers. So unfortunately, because our environment can't sustain beavers, we have a perfect world where reservoirs are reservoirs and streams are streams and rivers are rivers, and we can't change that environment because people spent millions of dollars putting 13 homes in that little creek that you just turned into a lake. So unfortunately, beavers wind up on the sad end of this. Okay? I want to thank you for your attention tonight. And this was great. Good job setting it up, Health Department.
Thank you, Carol.
You're welcome. That was fun.